Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to February's webinar of the New Growth Women's Business Center's webinar series. I'm Lacey, and I'm the director at the New Growth Women's Business Center. Today, we are excited to hear from Pamela Hernandez, who is the regional director of the Better Business Bureau. She is going to be talking about living in a digital world. A little bit about the Women's Business Center. We serve 13 rural counties in Missouri and 2 in Kansas, and we offer technical assistance, business counseling, networking opportunities, access to financing, and business training. If you would like to learn more about who we are and what we do, you can reach out to us at wbcinfo@newgrowthmo.org, or you can find us on our Facebook page as well. We do encourage you to ask questions during the webinar, so feel free to use the chat or the Q&A section to ask your questions if you have any. And this webinar is being recorded, so we will be posting the recording on our website, our Facebook page, as well as our YouTube channel. And we are a not-for-profit resource that is partially funded by the SBA. So, Pamela, without further ado, I will let you take over.
Thank you very much. Let me go ahead and share my screen. We're going to go ahead and bring up our presentation for today. And thank you for this opportunity to share. I certainly appreciate it. As Wacy said, I am the regional director for Better Business Bureau. I'm based in Springfield, Missouri, but I actually serve all of Southwest Missouri. So I think our regions, our areas sort of overlap. So I'm often out and about and hope to see some of you as I'm out traveling around. BBB, for those of you who don't know, is a nonprofit with over 100 years of experience supporting businesses, building consumer trust, and helping resolve disputes. And our mission is to be the leader in advancing marketplace trust. Big part of my job is the education and outreach, sharing this mission, helping connect consumers with brands, businesses, and charities that they can trust, and giving people information so that they feel confident in their marketplace decisions. Now, you may be asking yourself, what does that have to do with living in a digital world? What does that have to do with cybersecurity? Well, there's a couple of different tie-ins or things, what that means for us. So one is, as a nonprofit, we are supported by our member dues. Businesses can choose to apply for BBB accreditation. And when they do, they agree to uphold our standards for trust. One of those standards for trust is safeguarding privacy. So obviously, we want to provide as much information as possible to all businesses, but especially our member businesses, on how to do that, how to be cyber secure. Now, another part of what we do, and it's certainly a big part of my job, is scam prevention education. And nothing erodes marketplace trust like scams. And when we get into that space of cybersecurity, living cyber secure, we talk about tech scams, we talk about social media scams, we talk about things like business email compromise. So that is how this all ties together with the work of BBB and what we do. So before I jump in with my information, I like to do a little pop quiz. I'm sure you weren't expecting a quiz today, but that's okay. I'm not taking grades. No one has to tell me their answers. I don't expect anybody to put anything into the chat, but some things that I want you to think about and get into kind of the frame of mind as we're getting ready to dive into some material today. So I'll just go through each of these and just make a little mental yes or no, how you answer these questions. So you can kind of give yourself a little, maybe give yourself your own grade if you're that kind of person that likes to get a gold star. So first, do you use long passwords or passphrases that are hard to guess and longer than 8 characters in length? These days, I don't think sites let you do less than 8 characters, but that there may still be some places where you can do that. Do you use a different password for each account or device login? I can tell you right now, I used to be guilty of using the same one everywhere, but I have learned to think differently. When you change your passwords, do you create entirely new ones rather than changing one character or adding a number to the end? Do you make sure you recognize an incoming phone number before answering the call? Now, personally, that's a little bit easier than professionally. If you're a business, you're not always going to recognize those incoming phone numbers. But the good news is, particularly if you're using your mobile phone, a lot of those now get identified if it's potentially a scam. Have you turned on two-factor or multi-factor authentication on your accounts that will allow it? And if you're not familiar with that term, we're going to talk more about that and how it works and why it's important. Do you use a passcode to unlock your computer or laptop every time you turn it on, or even after it goes to sleep for a short time? I used to work in the financial services industry. It was actually one of my first jobs as a teller. And we were drilled into our brains to always lock that computer when you walk away. And I've tried to hold on to that ever since. Have you installed and kept current security malware protection software on your devices, including computers, phones, and tablets? Do you confirm the sender is legitimate before replying to a text or email? Sometimes we're in a hurry. We don't always do the little hover or click to see where is that email really coming from. Do you check website URLs to make sure you are on secure, legitimate pages? And that means when you're doing pretty much anything online, are you looking for the little lock in the URL? Are you looking for the URL to start with HTTPS? And are just making sure that if you're looking for a company that you've landed on the right site, that you haven't made a spelling error or typo that may take you somewhere else. And finally, have you selected increased privacy and security settings on your accounts and apps? Those options are out there. We just have to make sure we're taking advantage of them. So I like to start with this quiz to get you thinking about your behaviors, because we're not going to talk today about coding. We're not going to talk about firewalls. We're not going to talk about the technical piece. We're going to talk about our behaviors. That's sort of my specialty. And the reason we do that is because more than 70% of security breaches involve a human element. That means that's some sort of choice, that's some sort of thing we as individuals maybe did or didn't do. So if we work to control the things that are in our control, we're going to make ourselves and our companies less vulnerable to some sort of security breach or data privacy issue. We want to minimize that human risk. Only 50% of US small businesses have some sort of cybersecurity plan. And scammers know that. That's why small businesses, even medium-sized businesses, are a target. They're a popular target for scammers, because as a former business owner where it was just me, myself, and I didn't have an IT staff. I didn't have a security team. I was wearing all the hats. And I'm sure for those of you who have a business, you're thinking about a business, you're wearing all of those hats. So we need to start thinking about good cyber hygiene, routines, those controllable factors. And if there's more than one person in your business, just documenting those. It doesn't have to be a 50-page manual, but somewhere where these routines are documented. That way, if one person leaves, the next person can pick up right where they left off. So hopefully today you're going to leave with some very actionable steps, some information, some things that you can do to control that human element and help protect yourself and live cyber secure. And being here watching this webinar is a great first step. Businesses are better able to manage cyber threats and learn from industry best practices by, number two, having education and resources, offering education and awareness, and exploring the real and perceived risks of cyber attacks. And by doing this, you're building public trust. You want consumers to trust that your business is doing the right thing with their data. And you want to work with businesses that you trust are doing the right thing with their data. So being here, wonderful first step, getting yourself educated, because scammers and hackers thrive in an environment where folks don't understand technology. Unfamiliar technology is one of those things that gives them an opportunity to take advantage of people. So with disruption and confusion, whether that's in the marketplace, whether that's, what's going on in the personal environment, fear and embarrassment, not having a place where they can go and ask questions. I always tell people, if they're not sure about a scam, I'm a resource, and I'm certainly going to give you some more resources at the end of our talk today to ask. You should never be fearful of asking about a scam. You should never feel embarrassed. It happens to so many people. In fact, I'll encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me there. I posted an article recently that's kind of made the rounds about a personal finance reporter who lost $50,000 in a scam and wrote about it, talking about all of the things that happened to her, and her own feeling of this couldn't possibly happen to me, but it can happen to any of us, and how those scammers preyed on the fear and embarrassment that they thought she might face to make sure she didn't reach out to somebody. So a couple of other things to think about is impersonating trusted relationships. We're going to talk about impersonation scams today. And this fear of missing out, getting you to act without thinking. So those are the kind of things that really just help scammers, unfortunately, do their work. And scammers, they want your money. They want your personal information. They want to take advantage of your brand. They want to take advantage of your reputation. So another example, this was something that was on KY3 last fall, if I remember correctly. Ashley Reynolds did an interview with me, and she talked to this family, a small business in the Lebanon, Missouri area that sold automobiles. They had their business for, I think, over 20 years, and had never bothered to set up a website. They didn't need to set up a website. They didn't feel there was a cause. They never registered their domain. But a scammer found out about their business, set up a website with their domain, spoofed some of their information, and started scamming individuals around the country out of thousands of dollars. These were classic cars they were advertising. So you're talking about vehicles that were $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. And now not only are they trying to sort of sort through reclaiming their reputation, but there are people who have unfortunately taken legal action against them. And so they're really in a horrible situation, because a scammer was, again, able to take advantage of their brand and their reputation. So we want to do everything we can to remove the human element and try to control what we can control. So let's talk about ways identity can be stolen, your personal identity, your business identity. Certainly we have old school traditional theft that still happens. Folks do steal things out of cars and coffee shops. There are still skimmers. So those devices that people might put on ATMs and other devices to steal information. Something we call red flag bandits. Unfortunately, postal theft is up, package theft is up, and there are still dumpster divers. There are people out there going through the trash, seeing what they can find. But we also have a lot of vulnerability when it comes to unsafe public connections, data breaches, weak protection, and phishing scams. And that's where we're going to focus our attention today. So let's start with unsafe connections and weak data practices. We are out and about again. Wacy and I were just talking about kind of returning to some sort of normal after the shift during the COVID pandemic. And we're back to working in public spaces like coffee shops, libraries, maybe a co-working type of space or environment, an airport. And we want to make sure we're being cautious when we're out in those public settings, and using our technology and doing our work. Thinking twice before using a public Wi-Fi network. You don't know the security on that network. And unfortunately, there's technology where people can sit in a vehicle outside the coffee shop and fool you into think you are connecting to perhaps that coffee shop's Wi-Fi when you're not. So really being cautious and careful before connecting to any kind of public Wi-Fi. You certainly want to think about turning off auto join, because you could end up on a network and not realize you've joined a network. Again, in that public space, not realizing that someone next door, someone in a vehicle outside is trying to take advantage of your connected device to get to your information. You also want to be careful how you charge up. There is something that consumers have reported to BBB called juice jacking. And that has to do with using public USB ports or charging stations to download malware onto your device. So using an AC power adapter when possible, or having your own external battery pack, those are very popular. I have one for when I travel. And if you have to use a public charging station via USB, make sure you're choosing charge only. And then there's just poor cyber hygiene and habits. We get busy. We don't know what we don't know. Like I said, I am not a technology expert. We want to make sure we're doing everything we can as far as those technology routines that are within our control if we don't have that technology expert in our life and our business. So some basic cybersecurity for phones. Let's start talking about some routines we want to make sure that we're doing. We want to protect the data on our phone in case it gets lost or stolen. And that starts with locking your phone when it's not in use, which I know sometimes can be a challenge, when you're constantly having to lock your phone. They've made that technology a little bit easier with things like Face ID, but it does help secure your data if you do lose your phone or if it's stolen. You want to make sure your operating system is up to date. Make sure when you see that little notification, you get that updated as soon as possible. For security patches as well. And the same thing goes for your apps. You can turn on auto update. Every time I plug my phone in to charge it, it will auto update apps. That way, make sure that all those security patches are uploaded if they need to be. And be sure to back up your data to the cloud or an external device. Because if your phone is lost or stolen and you have to wipe the data, you don't want to lose all of your photographs. You don't want to lose all of your important information that you might have been keeping on your phone. And that's why it's also important to have programs that help you track your phone or wipe data remotely, such as Find My Phone. Now, before we upgrade, before we trash, hopefully we're not trashing, hopefully we're recycling those old phones, remove the SIM and SD cards that store the data. They don't need that if you're going to turn that phone in. Erase all your contacts, texts, photos, videos, etc. Wipe that phone clean and disconnect passwords from accounts and access to devices like cars or watches. And I'll give you a personal example. I wear an Apple Watch, and the last time I upgraded, I had a sort of an older version, and I had a coworker who was looking to get one for her daughter, didn't want to, teenager, didn't want to spend a lot. And so I sold her my old watch. I unfortunately did not disconnect it from my iCloud. And so when she went to try to use it, they wouldn't let her use it because it was still controlled access to my account. Now, luckily, it was somebody I knew. She texted me. I was able to fix that. But you don't want to be in that position if you send it back in, for example, for any kind of credit. So just make sure you disconnect before you get rid of your phone or devices. We also want to think about some basics for our computers, our laptops, our desktops. So have some habits. Run that antivirus software program updates as soon as possible on a routine. Make sure that that happens. That's going to help protect you as new viruses come out, any security patches. Make sure you're doing that on a regular basis. Shut down computers if they won't be in use. Maybe you have someone that's no longer working in your office, or you're going to be on vacation. Just go ahead and shut it down. ensure old computer hard drives are destroyed, and be careful with external devices like flash drives. USB drives, flash drives are very popular. They're very convenient. Don't put anything on there, though, that you would want somebody to access if they were lost. And then never allow remote access to your machine. So there was just a story on KY3, I believe last night, about someone, we're going to talk about this phishing scam, but they thought they were talking to someone at a tech company, and they allowed remote access to their computer. And once you do that, those folks can get to anything that's on your device, potentially any device that's on your network. So never allow remote access to a machine unless you are absolutely 100% sure you know who it is. One of those few things that I say never, but if I had to err on the side of caution, I would say never. When it comes to emails and programs, make sure you've got complex passwords with good authentication tools. We're going to talk more about what makes a complex password in just a minute. Delete any unwanted programs, anything that you're not using, old emails as well. With those old programs, you could open yourself up to vulnerability if they're not getting updated on a regular basis. So you want to delete those. And if you remember nothing else today, when it comes to email, text messages, phishing attacks, they come through links and attachments. Never click on links or open attachments. That's my number one piece of advice when I talk about scams. We also want to talk about IoT devices. What's an IoT device? The Internet of Things. That is the smart thermostat, the surveillance cameras, Alexa, your Apple HomePod, any other smart devices that you might have connected in your home, your office, or your home office. That line blurs these days, doesn't it, between home and office for many of us. So if it connects to the internet, it needs protection. So what hackers can do, they can attack your home, your office, your home office through the router. Malicious software can be installed on a Wi-Fi router to collect information on the network, block network traffic, and steal passwords. You could also end up with your actual devices, an attack being launched on your home through your, let's say, your HomePod or a security system by somebody being able to hack into that device. So we just want to make sure that we're doing everything we can. Again, what can we control to make those devices and our home or office networks safer? So for those IoT devices, securing your smart home, your smart office, or your smart home office, give your router a unique name and change the default username and passwords. That's probably something most people don't think when they go get a new wireless router. It's time. Maybe you're setting up a home office for the first time, or you're moving into a space. Change that default. It's so easy for someone to come in and guess that 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever default password might be on there. If you're going to allow others to use your network, set up a guest network. So that applies to your home, that applies to your office space. Don't allow them access to the network that you use for sensitive information. You want to check privacy and security settings. And again, use that multi-factor authentication. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And disable any features you may not need, like remote access. There's probably not anything you need remote access, say, to your maybe smart thermostat. So just be careful with what you allow to have remote access to. Run software updates as often as possible. Those devices do get software updates. And keep in mind, the newer the item, the stronger the security. So if you have older devices, that might be another reason to think about upgrading. Again, whether that's in your home or in your office space. So I am going to take just a moment before we kind of shift gears a little bit to see if we have anything in the Q&A. And certainly at the end of the presentation, I will share my contact information. So if you go through this later, you're watching on YouTube or you're watching on Facebook, and you have a question, you can certainly reach out to me with those questions. So let's go ahead and talk about data breaches. Oh, I'm sorry, strong
Well,
passwords. Yeah, go ahead.
I actually have a question.
Yeah,
Um,
sorry.
so
I
you
moved too
mentioned,
fast.
no, you're good. So at the beginning, you talked about how you should use a different password for everything. I don't, you might be talking. Oh, are you getting ready to talk about this?
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I am, but that's go ahead. Go ahead. Give me a segue.
well, okay, here's a segue. My question is, like, how do you possibly keep track of so many different complicated passwords? Like, what would be the best way to do that?
Ah, that is a great question. And thank you. That is a perfect segue. I love it when I get segues. That it helps me so
It
much.
was it was unintentional, but there you go.
It's perfect. So, and yeah, it's a very important question because we do have so many passwords and every site has different requirements, it feels like. So hopefully your password manager is not like the visual on the screen where we just have Post-its everywhere with all of our different passwords because we don't want to reuse them. That's where a password manager is so important. I don't know what I would do without my password manager. And my password manager, again, it's not Post-its on a screen. There are various apps like LastPassword, 1Password, that they use extremely strong encryption to create a vault for you to store all of your passwords in. They will generate passwords for you if you don't want to have to think about it too hard, because it feels like we are asked to change our passwords on a regular basis, which is actually a good thing. And you can keep them all in there along with user IDs, any other additional information that you might need to help you manage your sort of digital world. And like I said, I don't know what I would do without my password manager because you do want to have long, strong passwords. You want them to be, in a lot of cases, you want them to be at least 12 characters. 8 is kind of the minimum for most sites, but when it comes to anything financial, email, anything extremely sensitive, we recommend 12 characters. You want a variety of characters, so the uppercase, the lowercase, the numbers, and the symbols. You want to make them, it doesn't have to be completely random, although a password manager will give you completely random, but you can use things like passphrases. So maybe you have you see things out your window. I love the one that says chair flag window coffee. That just reminds me like somebody's just sitting at their desk and like these are the things that they see every day. They see their chair, they see their window, there's a flag out the window and their coffee cup, right? So it's those types of things that are so unique to you. You make a couple of little additions and that's something that's really hard for somebody to hack into. So a password manager can help you do it. But if you want to create your own random ones, you can certainly do it and then use that password manager to help you keep track. I don't know what I would do without mine. Also, multi-factor authentication. I've brought that up several times. What that is, and you've probably encountered it, but you may not know that's what it was called. And that is where you go to log onto a site and they text you a code and you have to enter that code, or you go to change your password and they send you that code. Or I have one account where I can get a code or I can log on, let's say I'm on my laptop and then I go to the app, and because I get into the app with a password and Face ID, they verify me through the app. So it's some sort of multi-step process beyond just entering your password, and it just offers you another layer of protection. So using those authentication tools where possible. And certainly if you are notified of a data breach, and we're going to talk about data breaches in just a minute, this helps you change your passwords quickly, having a password manager, because you can just go through and be like, okay, I need to change this, I need to change this, I need to change this. And it will just, it's all there in one place. And so they're extremely helpful to have. Also being really careful with your security questions. A password manager often has a notes section where you can keep track of answers because you don't want to use easy things. It used to be we were always using our mother's maiden name as a password, and that's just so easy to find, especially now that mom's on Facebook and she's got her maiden name out there because she wants all her high school friends to find her. So we really don't want to use things like that or things that are easy to guess. Color of your first car. Well, the options are kind of limited. And for most of us, that's probably going to be black, white, or red. So easy to break. So when you're setting up questions that sometimes even you might forget the answer to, Your password manager is typically going to have a note section where you can keep track of those things as well. So just highly recommend a password manager. So I feel like I answered the question, but I'm gonna pause for a moment, Wasey, and just see if you have any other questions about passwords or if that answered it.
That was perfect. I should have just waited and let you do your thing.
That's okay. I love if you ask questions, that means you're paying attention, and I like that. So perfect. I didn't see anything else in the Q&A, so we'll just move right on then. Kind of getting past that to talking about those data breaches. And there we go. So some fun facts, or not so fun facts, I guess it depends on how you look at it. Your chances of getting struck by lightning, 1 in 960,000. Dating a millionaire, 1 in 220. If I were still dating, I'd like those odds. Experiencing a data breach, 1 in 4. That means it's going to happen to most of us. Whether that's your data being lost by a company, I have experienced that. Or if you, as a business owner, your network is compromised and now you've lost sensitive employee or customer data. So unfortunately, it's almost not a if, but when. And being prepared about what you need to do if you are that customer, or if unfortunately your network is breached and now you've lost some sensitive data. So what should you do, or what are some steps to take after a data breach? And this is, again, if you're that consumer and you find out that your doctor's office, I recently got letters that there was a problem at the hospital system in the doctor's office where I used that they'd experienced data breach. A retailer, there were some high profile data breaches several years ago at some very popular retailers. What do? The first thing is to remain calm. You don't want to panic, because when we're fearful, we start acting without thinking. And scammers, again, they want to take advantage of that. So scammers know there are data breaches as well, and they start sending out those phishing emails or putting out fake social media messages, trying to get you to act to protect your data. You don't want to click on those links. You want to instead go to the website directly of the company involved. They will have information about what to do. Often they will send you postal mail. This is what you need to do. Follow their instructions. That's going to be your safest bet. If a bank account, a card was impacted, like your debit or credit card, contact the issuer. Let them know this card was on file with this site. More than likely, they're going to want to issue you a new card. It's not always the case, but you do need to contact them and let them know. Consider putting a credit freeze or a fraud alert on your credit reports. This is easier now than probably it ever was. I have gone through the process of putting on a credit freeze. It's very quick. It's very simple, and you can do that. Now, you do have to do it for each of the major credit bureaus. So you do have to do the process 3 times, but it's very simple. You also want to keep an eye on your credit. You can still go to annualcreditreport.com to get your credit reports for free annually. You do not have to get all 3 at once. You can, if you prefer, cycle. So there's Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. You can get one and then wait a few months and get another if that's kind of makes you feel like you're monitoring on a more regular basis. So that is something that you want to do, and just be good financial hygiene as well, keeping an eye on your credit. And like I said, stay alert for scams, because scammers know about these breaches and they're going to try to get you to, again, act from a place of fear with phishing attempts related to the breach. Now, what might be a little scarier is if your company is the one involved in a data breach. If you have had some sort of breach and now you've lost potentially employee data or customer data. These tips are from the Federal Trade Commission. There's more information about each of these and other resources at ftc.gov. Highly encourage you to go and just take a look. Sometimes it's good, again, be prepared. That's why every time we get on a plane, we go through that safety briefing. We sort of have a familiarity of what to do before anything actually happens. But you're going to want to secure your operations. You're going to want to make sure that any vulnerabilities in systems are fixed as soon as possible, and even securing the physical area potentially related to the breach. depending on what happened, there might be evidence of who did it and how to track that information down. You're probably going to need help. This is not a DIY project. This is not the kind of thing you want to try to bootstrap necessarily, unfortunately. That it could include legal counsel and data forensic experts, as well as other IT security experts. And again, doing whatever it takes to stop additional data loss. Take anything that was affected, any equipment affected offline as soon as possible. You're also going to remove improperly posted information from the web. That means your website, that means social media. You're probably going to want to contact search engines because they archive and they don't always update things immediately. So you'll need to get that removed. And potentially any other websites that could have data that they got from your website that, again, they don't know that there was a breach. So it's going to take a little bit of work to kind of track all that down as soon as possible. And then you want to notify all the appropriate parties. And that, of course, includes your consumers, your employees, whatever is required by your state, certainly by the federal government. FTC does go into more detail about that, but that can include law enforcement. If there's health info that's been lost, you do need to contact the Federal Trade Commission. So again, this is one of those things you're probably going to want some help, making sure that you're taking all the steps necessary to recover from that data breach. And with those data breaches, like we said, scammers come along. And that's why I want to spend a little bit of time talking about phishing and imposter scams and some other tech-related scams to be aware of. So phishing scams are somebody that's reaching out, they're casting a net, typically that's pretty wide. You're getting a phone call, a text message, we call that smishing, by the way, that they're wanting you to click a link, share some information, call a number, or download an attachment, which hopefully after this webinar you will not do, because those are going to contain, more likely than not, some sort of malware to infect your computer and steal more information. They are imposters. They're trying to get you to think that they're the company that was breached. They want to help you. We're going to make this easy for you. They're threatening a punishment. They're trying to tell you that they're from the IRS or from someone else, or something just harmless, some sort of like information, and they want you to click a link. But we don't do that. We don't click links. We don't click on attachments. We don't reply directly to any information in an email. So I think I alluded to a scam where somebody gave control of their computer over to someone who contacted them. And this is a very, very, very common tech scam, which we'll talk about some others in a minute, but where they send you, this person was sent what looked like an invoice for a tech product that said, if you don't cancel within a set number of days, we're going to charge you. She, of course, unfortunately called the number in the email. They said, of course, we don't want that to happen, but we need to take control of your computer. There's some things we need to do. Don't let anyone take control of your computer. Don't contact anybody in that email, that phone number. These things can sometimes look harmless, but it's just a way of trying to sort of take advantage of either a confidence situation. It's somebody that you know, a brand that you trust, or that there's some sort of fear involved. I don't want this to get worse. There's a very specific kind of phishing scam that we're seeing more of, and that is business email compromise. And it's targeting those in a company who have access to financial accounts or sensitive information and requesting changes to an account. So for example, it looks like someone in your organization wants to change their payroll account, money to be sent via wire transfer. It looks like it's from a vendor and they want you to change where the bank account you send the money to for payment on invoices. Or it's coming from a CEO asking you to go buy some gift cards for them. These reports are coming to BBB more and more often. And so just being aware that these things are out there and that it's so important to have a process in place for who can update or how we update payroll information, or how we verify when a vendor needs to change information. And certainly, is it normal if the CEO wants me to go out and buy gift cards? Hopefully you are in a place where you can ask the person in your company, why is somebody asking to buy gift cards? Never be afraid to ask that question. Verify, verify, verify. That's my second piece of information. Don't click the link. Don't Don't open attachments, and verify, verify, verify. Of course, that gets more challenging with the new factor, and that is AI. We talked about education, awareness. Gamers love it when we're unfamiliar with technology. We need to get familiar with AI and understand how those images, and maybe not so much the how, but what to look for when it comes to generated images, videos, even voice recordings. Understanding telltale signs of AI generated videos like blurry spots, double edges on faces. I don't know if you saw the Super Bowl commercial with the Minions creating those AI images with way too many fingers. Or if you saw about a year ago, the Pope in the puffy coat and how blurry and odd it was to only have half of the chain and the little small stubby fingers. These are the kinds of things we have to be vigilant looking at. If it's something that's an audio message, look for things that are out of place inflection, out of place background noises, educating yourself, your family, your team about what those red flags are. And again, always verify who you're talking to. Seeing someone on a Zoom giving a thumbs up is not going to be an approval, because scammers can fake those videos using AI of someone you think you're talking to on the other end. So doing as much, and I know there's a lot of education out there, so just really making sure you understand how AI works. And then went the wrong way there, tech support scams. I was kind of alluding to with the person who got the email because of some sort of tech subscription, tech support. And so these scams can be a call from a tech support offering to fix a bug, or a pop-up warning that appears instructing to call for help. My in-laws got one of those pop-up warnings and unfortunately called. It was not Microsoft. So thankfully, they realized what they'd done in time and did not lose any money or information that we know of. But that comes from knowing how antivirus software works. Your antivirus or any sort of updates from Microsoft are not going to show up in a web browser type of pop-up. Microsoft does, you don't call Microsoft. Again, that's an educational thing. Tech support is not going to call you out of the blue. Someone from Apple or Dell is not going to call you out of the blue offering to fix a bug. Legitimate companies just don't make those kinds of unsolicited calls. And so also never call the number in a pop-up. You want to disconnect, shut down, restart, and run your antivirus scan. And never give control again of your computer to an unverified third party. And if you're unsure about any of these things, technology changes fast. We're not all tech experts. Find a trusted professional who does this kind of work for a living. If you do find yourself a victim of a tech support scam, these are not in necessarily order of importance, but you do want to contact your bank. Again, depending on what happened, you may need to change cards, you may need to switch bank accounts, but let them know. If nothing else, they can put an alert on your account. Again, have the infected device assessed by a trusted professional. This is a time when you definitely want to get help. Change all your passwords. Here's where your password manager is going to come in handy. It's going to help you out. And then report the scam. You want to report it to law enforcement, to the FTC, and to BBB. Quick touch on social media scams. This is another way people can get your sensitive information. We see those fun quizzes on social media all the time. Way to get to know your friends better. Or those short little fun personality tests to find out which TV character you're most like, which Disney princess you are, which Harry Potter house you're in. Those are all questions that are likely to be something we might use as a password or as a security question, like, what street did you grow up on? What was the name of your first pet? These are all things that scammers can use to try to hack not just your social media account, but other accounts that they might discover from there. So really be careful. So let's talk. We talked about having some small steps, and we are certainly running towards the end of our time. And I want to make sure that you do have some actionable things, because we've talked about a lot today. So 5 cybersecurity best practices for your small business. And again, it starts with education. Train everyone on your team in cybersecurity best practices. not once a year where you sit down and do cybersecurity training, but try to sprinkle it in throughout the year about setting passwords, locking computers, making sure that everybody's going through the hygiene checklist so that devices are getting security updates. Take the time, make it part of your routine. Implement role-based access control. Make sure that only the people that need the information have access to the information. It can be hard if you're a small operation, but it could save you trouble in the long run. Initiate automated remote backup and data recovery. That just makes sure you don't have to think about the fact that you have all of your data backed up in case of a problem. If you can put it on an automated schedule, do it. Use multi-factor authentication. One other way to use this, in our organization, we have, for example, an account that if we try to access it and enter the password, the multi-factor authentication goes to another person on the team. That way that person can verify that the person that's trying to access it actually is a person that needs to access it. So just another way you can use multi-factor authentication. And secure your Wi-Fi network. Home office, make sure it's locked down. And then living cyber secure, because we know the work life walls are a little blurred these days. It's just so important to don't believe everything you see, particularly with AI. Dig deeper, do your research, and verify. Avoid clicking on links and opening attachments. If you remember nothing else from today, don't look at the link, don't open the attachment. Double check your online purchase, your online activity is secure before checking out. So just make sure you're looking for that lock and that HTTPS so that your data isn't being transmitted to someone or somewhere you don't know about or don't want it to go. Never share personally identifiable information with somebody you don't recognize. Resist any pressure to act immediately. And then share with care on social media. We talked about quizzes, but you also want to make sure that your profiles are locked down. Be careful what you're sharing about where your kids go to school, what grades they're in, vacation plans, all of those things. Just be careful, share with care. BBB is always here to help. If you're looking to verify if a business is legitimate, if you need to find a trusted professional, bbb.org is absolutely a place that you can do it. Community outreach is my job. If this is information that you believe your group could use or curious about other free presentations that BBB offers, please don't hesitate to reach out. bbb.org is the place to go for everything. And certainly BBB Scam Tracker. Scam Tracker is a free tool. You can search if you think you are potentially involved in a scam. You can search by a website, a phone number, a name of a person, a name of a company. You can search there, or please report a scam. If you have encountered a scam, let us know, because that's how we get the data we use to protect our community. When I talk to the media, when I give presentations, knowing what's happening right here in Southwest Missouri is so important to help craft that conversation. So it is there for you as a tool, free of charge. And I have so many other resources. Again, my information, you can always call our customer relations support team. That's the 314 number at the top of the slide. I'm also available to answer your questions. Sometimes I'm out and about, so it's a little harder to get to me. Emails, I will email you back. If you just would rather ask me than say a friend or family member or a coworker, you're just not quite sure, please don't hesitate to reach out. Scam Tracker is there. If you want more information about different types of scams, we publish 4 major scam studies a year. These are sort of large scale investigations. So you can go and read those. Federal Trade Commission is also a huge resource. You can report fraud to the FTC. If you think you're involved in identity theft, if you find, for example, things on your credit report that give a red flag, someone might have stolen your identity, identitytheft.gov, wonderful resource. And there it is again, annualcreditreport.com. You can go online. You can actually also call them to get assistance. So that is my information. Don't hesitate to use those resources to reach out to our customer relations support team or myself. And I think we're real close to time, but certainly available to answer some questions.
I don't see any questions in the chat or the QA yet. But I just want to say thanks. I feel like that was a lot of really helpful information, and thank you also for the list of resources as well.
You're very welcome. And again, as people are watching this later, if there are questions, there are things they need a more deep dive on, I am always happy to help. So just feel free to reach out. And again, these are talks that I go and give to any variety of community organizations. So if there's a group that you think needs to hear this, I'm happy. Please contact me and let me know.
Okay. Thanks so much, Pamela, for your time. And I think you guys might also be doing our webinar in March.
That is correct. And if I remember correctly, we are going to be talking about financial related scams. So
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
grant scams, predatory practices when it comes to credit repair, debt assistance. So if someone's in that phase of trying to think, okay, how do I perhaps need to get my credit together to help me prepare to start a business? Or if you're thinking about grant funding after you've been in business, some things to look out for. So we're going to be talking about that next month.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Thank you. So am I. And I again appreciate you very much.
Okay, it was great to meet you today, and I hope you have a great day.
Thanks. Thank you. Same.
Bye.
Bye.